this morning, I have the great opportunity to introduce someone who just ignited a light in me as well to the Creative Morning stage. Ashley Williams is a yoga therapist and mindful educator with years in the field of education, behavioral and mental health, and community programming in Richmond. She is the founder of a community-based organization called Bare Soul Yoga and Wellness. As a builder and weaver, Ashley bridges mindfulness, diversity, wellness, and inclusion to achieve equitable, socially stable, and conscious spaces. Through the encouragement of self-exploration, awareness, and authenticity, Ashley is creating spaces and community for people of all ages and all backgrounds. Everyone is welcome, right? I'm super excited that you're with us this morning, Ashley. Before Ashley gets started, I'd like to invite Kieran Baguette, who will start with us with an opening experience. Kieran is a holistic wellness activist that uses her abilities to empower herself and uplift others through yoga, agriculture, mindfulness, and social justice. She is the Bare Soul space holder and ambassador, and you can find her on the links that we're about to drop in the chat. So please go and thank her for this experience. Welcome this morning to Kieran and Ashley to the Creative Morning stage.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Kieran Baguette, and I'm super excited and humble and so grateful to be in the presence of such amazing creators. Richmond is creative. We're filled with so many creative people, and I see so many amazing faces that are familiar to me. And again, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm great at creating organic wellness experiences for the freedom to live, the freedom to be creative, and to just be peaceful. And today my purpose is to guide us all through a creative moment where we create a rippling effect of change through a smile. The name of this meditation or mindful moment is called The Ripple Effect Begins With Me. And before I even get started, I want to uplift this month of Women's History Month. None of us would be here without a woman. So thank you to my mom, most of all, and to all of the great women who rippled their big smiles, energy, vibration, and voices for all of us to be here. So I want to invite us to come into a comfortable seat, however that feels or looks like to you. There's no expectation. This isn't a big test or anything like that. So really do what makes you feel comfortable, and we're going to create this experience, this rippling experience together. I love this theme of ripple. Where the energy goes, the energy flows. So have you ever, or do you ever see people who are mad, sad, unhappy, maybe burnt out or stressed with dis-ease? And this can be our parents, maybe siblings, friends, or even the cashier at our local farmer's market. The best thing that we can do to make people feel better, or to make others feel better, is to remember that the ripple begins with you. The ripple effect begins with you. And all we have to do is smile. That's all we have to do to create that rippling effect. So I want to invite you to place your hands at your heart. And if it feels good for you, you can close your eyes or find a gentle gaze in front of you, or maybe you focus on an object that creates that rippling effect or sensation of happiness, that rippling effect of a smile. And just begin to gently smile. take in a gentle smile and whisper, either mentally or aloud. The ripple effect begins with a smile. The ripple effect begins with a smile, and smile a little bigger and say a little louder. A ripple effect begins with a smile. A ripple effect begins with a smile. A little louder, giving your biggest smile, your most abundant, your most magnificent, biggest smile that you've ever smiled before. And say louder, the ripple effect begins with a smile. The ripple effect begins with a smile. The ripple effect begins with a smile. And just take in that abundant smile. Allow that smile to ripple throughout your entire being, throughout your mind, your heart, your body. Take it all in. And now allow this energy, this smile that you have taken in for yourself to ripple out into this virtual space. Noticing the names in the room, maybe familiar faces, and sending a smile. As simple as that. And the takeaway is that this works because a smile is contagious. And we all have beautiful smiles. There's power in our smile that creates this ripple effect to make the world a better place, to make a greater humanity for both you and I and all beings to fully be free, to be peaceful. And that's my ripple. That's my ripple effect, my offering to you all. Thank you so much for sharing a smile with me. Thank you for inviting me to be in the space. And we're going to turn it over to the beautiful, magnificent, awesome, amazing Ashley Williams, a great friend, a great leader. So many things. I can go on and on and on. But yeah, continue to be creative and ripple through. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. So someone in the chat said that they couldn't separate smiling from laughing. I'm like, I can't separate smiling, laughing, and crying right now. So here we are. Everybody who knows me knows that I probably cry at the drop of a dime. And so it's not that I'm ever really, it is that I can be sad, but at this moment, I'm just so overwhelmed with gratitude for community. So thank you, Lindsay and Michelle, for creating this space. Thank you for Q Run for opening up this space. So this is Joy. And in the midst of today's actually National Laughter Day. But in the midst of this moment, I am very joyful to be here and so very thankful. And what Kiran mentioned as well is that in acknowledgement of Women's History Month, I just want to shout out all the beautiful women that, yes, are in this space, but then also the women that support me outside of this space. And then all the women in general in this world. And an acknowledgement of that, I am grateful for who I am because of them. And so I come into this space today with words that we had the Creative Mornings theme, but with words that came from a dear friend that's also in this space. But when you create a difference in someone's life, you not only impact their life, you impact everyone influenced by them throughout your entire lifetime. No act is ever too small. One by one, this is how to make the ocean rise. And so when I was asked by Michelle and Lindsay to share at Creative Mornings, and they mentioned that the theme was ripple, I had been using the word ripple in my like everyday sentences, just randomly, just because of a lot of the things that had been taking place in this 33-year-old self of me. If you know about 33-year-old, it was a new concept to me, but I said it's our Jesus year. And so when I looked up what Jesus year meant, it's the year where, there's a lot of rebirth and progression forward. And it's a time where, I felt that it feels really resonant in my life right now. And so I'm really curious to hear about everybody else's Jesus year story. But this Jesus year for me has really elevated the concept and the idea that we are spiritual beings living a human experience, and that our inner essence is really what drives us, and our human experience is just what we're doing. And so today I want to come into this space with who I am in this very human experience. And so I'm the granddaughter of James Russell and Marie Virginia Bennett and Franklin Roosevelt and Betty Ruth Williams. I am the daughter of Franklin Roosevelt Williams Jr. and Wanda Bennett Williams. And so I come from a community and a family of educators and spiritual leaders and pastors and artisans and community activists and entrepreneurs and singers and farmers and plant workers and just leaders. And so I named that because they have a lot to do with the core values that I come and I lead by every day. And so with those core values, they've been just solidified by monumental and pivotal, significant relationships that have happened in my life, but also just moments in which others were a part of. And they've molded me into this woman that comes in and is super excited to co-create this space with you. But a woman, a daughter, a neighbor, a sister, a community member, yes, an entrepreneur, but someone who really just likes the idea and the concept of being. And that hasn't always been the case, but that is where I land and where I live. And so today, I know that the most important thing to me in my being is this concept and this idea and this act of connection. First, connection with myself, and then the connection with the world that lands around me. And so my late pastor said, Reverend Joseph D. Morrison, that when you get where you're going, do not forget where you came from. It was God that brought you a mighty long way. Goodness, I'm going to breathe. Breathing is my safe point. But I know that to be true because when I say the name God or divine or universe or light or spirit, what I say in that is that there's something bigger than our human experience. And at the essence of that is this concept and this action of love. And so I know that without that concept and that act of love, then I would not actually be here in this moment. And so the concept of love, identifying it as the feeling of your experience, the knowing, the understanding of our experiences, the caring and the protection of our experience, the support of our experience. And so with that concept of love, that has been a huge pillar of where I stand today. And so today I want to share moments in my life that led me to the deep importance of love. And so it came by way of smiles, but it really came by way of relationships. And so the first one, I'm going to land on a letter that I wrote myself. I'm not going to read the letter for sake of time, but a letter that I wrote myself in 2012. And I'll even show you a book. But this is, when you were just like always wanting to write, there's pictures and cutouts and all of these things in here. But I woke up, in the very first page of this book is a letter that I wrote at 2:30 in the morning. And at this time, this was a time when I was transitioning from college to work. I was transitioning through relationships. I was transitioning. There was just a lot of moving parts in my world, like trying to just really figure out who is this woman. And I was at the age of 24. And so when I wrote the letter, I think the biggest thing that came to me at the end of the letter was that don't forget to always love yourself. And I grew that concept of love in this period of self-discovery, really from someone that I named in my life as the most supportive person. And I named her as a mentor, and that was my aunt. And so her name is Josephine Sonora Bennett. And so I had identified her as someone that literally just delved into anything and everything that she did with love. And so if you were to envision her, I'm going to bring her into this space, but envisioning just beauty and power and strength and grace and intelligence and wit. And going back to our beginning meditation, a smile that showed all of that. And so she never had to say anything, but just being around her gave you this warming sensation. But when she did say something, it was always really important. So literally, I would probably say right after a couple of months after writing this letter to myself during this moment of figuring out, I received a letter from my aunt on my 25th birthday. And she was famous for giving letters every single year, or birthday cards every single year to every person in our family. And so I received one with these words, and I still have the card. It says, "A niece brings a little extra happiness to your life and a lot of love into your heart. Having you for a niece has been such a gift. For all you've been, all you are, and all you're yet to be, you're loved so very much. Happy 25th birthday." So with that letter, that was like the compliment that we talked about. That what was the thing that really rippled in your life? That was the last card that I was able to receive from her. Because at the time she was battling bone cancer. And when she was battling bone cancer, you could see her physical body wither, but you could see her faith still remain strong. And so I watched her continue to care for herself during this time, and I watched her continue to care for her family. One big thing about about her life in that moment too was that she was a social worker in the city of Richmond, caring for her community, and still with such grace and essence and love. And I just remember always hearing people say how much light she brought into a space. And so during this time, in March, 8 years ago, um, we brought her home because she was on hospice. And so we gathered at her house. And when we gathered at her house, we were told that she had 2 more weeks to live. And within a couple of days of her being home, things just really sped up. And I just remember at this moment sitting upstairs on a computer, and my family asked me to write her will because she didn't have long. And I remember sitting at a computer with so much emotion crumbling inside of me, but trying to be strong for this woman who had been strong for me. But I didn't let it show. So I didn't cry, I just held it. And at that moment, I remembered the exact time when I lost disconnection to myself. And so over the next couple of months, I had a complete inability to really relate to people. I carried on with my normal everyday activities, but it showed up for me as depression and anxiety and unhealthy behaviors from excess wine, because a girl loves wine but just not in the right way in that moment, and just not being able to really feel other people. And so I felt then that I was losing someone pivotal in my life while I was figuring it out. And over the next few months, after she had passed away, that's when I found this practice of yoga. And I found it in the sense of I literally hit towards a bottom space in my world, and I said, something's got to change. I actually am not well right now. And so I walked into a yoga studio and I began the practice. The first day that I went into the practice and I left, that was the first time that I had cried since her actual funeral. And that was the first time that I felt that I could feel. And so that's where my work in yoga began. But I'm going to come back to that. So when I come into this practice of yoga and experience my aunt's loss, I was also working at the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice as a mentor program coordinator. And so my role there was to encourage relationships between youth that had been incarcerated and allow them to build relationships with members from the community. And so the whole purpose was to ensure that when youth transitioned back into the community, they would be able to have a job, they would be able to be successful, that they would have a 9 to 5. And we know that those things are important. But in those relationships, the one thing that I noticed is that resonated with me is that there was a loss of hope or there was a disconnection. A lot of times from emotional things experiences that happened in their lives and not any time to really process or feel through them. And so my intention then began, how can we create space for people to actually feel? And so that's where yoga and mindfulness began in that space. But I want to tell about one really important relationship. I met a 15-year-old girl and she was about to be released to King William. Well, we knew her release date. And so as we worked together, my role was also to find her a match when she got released. And just because of many factors, I wasn't able to find a match for her. And so she asked me, I know you can't find a match for when I go home, but is there a way that you could be my mentor for these next couple of months? And so when I looked, I was like, I have so many full-time work responsibilities. How would I do this? I'm managing my own grief. And then I was just like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I didn't think much of it. I didn't make an actual commitment that I'm going to show up at this time at this day, but I did make a commitment to be present. And so I would visit her probably once or twice a week while I was at work. We would sit down, we would talk about things. And I just realized once again the importance of relationship. So the day before she got released, she wrote me a letter. And so the letter said, when you say you're going to show up, you actually show up. When you say you're going to do something, you actually do it. And I appreciate it. Thank you for always encouraging me to try out different things and giving me the space to explore who I am. You never pushed me, but you gave me the confidence to at least try. And I'm really going to miss you. I hope that God continues to bless you because you've been a blessing to my life. You see all of my dark and you accept all of my light. I love you. And then we proceeded to have a conversation after that she had not expressed love to anyone in 6 years. And that was a moment for her. So that was a reminder to me that relationship is vital to our human experience. And allowing people to be in their experience, whether it's something that's pleasant or unpleasant, is vital to our ability to move forward into this life. And so during that space, I learned patience, I learned compassion, I learned what it meant to show up and listen and to feel and to hear. And so from that time, I vowed intentionally to show up with presence in all that I do. And when I don't, I notice it and then I take a moment back and then come forth. And so this is where the core value that I name as liberation is that the ability to create space for us to feel, to free ourselves from things that prevent us from feeling and to really step into love. So both of those relationships were vital to just the work and who I am and how I show up. And I would name them as words and relationships and moments that have rippled through my life. I would also name that they are not, that the journey and the experiences that I name, I don't think are really uncommon. It's just whether we give ourselves an opportunity to be present with them. And so being present with our own experience is often um, an experience of, and how I name it is an experience of radical self-care and radical self-love, and an opportunity to allow that to be something that really supports us. And so this comes into the work that I currently land in. And I name that because, and I say this at many of the things that I do, is because self-care, mindfulness, yoga, honestly, I feel like they're trendy words right now. We're living in a world where they're trendy, but the thing about it is that they're so powerful. And so I define self-care as the intentional act of living to support your physical, your mental, our emotional, our spiritual, our intellectual well-being. And then radical self-care is we have to get to the root of of how and why we live physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially, and so forth in a certain way. And for me, that takes work. It means peeling back the layers of our experiences to really dive deep into what it means for us to be fully whole and fully well. And so that's where the practices of mindfulness and yoga have come into my world. Personally, I found them in moments of grief. I found them in moments of transition. But I don't think that we actually have to just go to things in moments of grief or in moments of transition or high stress. We have an opportunity to choose to be in the practices even beyond that. I also like to define the practice of mindfulness. So we live in this world where we define mindfulness a lot of times as this science, and this yoga as this physical practice. For me, the practice of mindfulness really just is showing up to my life, showing up to everything that came before me and bringing awareness to it, and allowing it to come in, allowing myself to come into the present moment of my thoughts, of my feelings, of how I'm engaging with other people, my relationships. It's being aware of what's arising and seeing it with equanimity, both the comfortable and the uncomfortable. So when things happen, we give ourselves this opportunity just to see it clearly. And so then there's this practice of mindfulness. I like to define them as different, even though they're fairly similar with different backgrounds. But the practices of yoga, just really giving ourselves an opportunity to step into the best version of ourselves through doing the work, through doing the work of tapping into what our body holds, to doing to the work to what our mind holds, to doing the work to how we respond or react to certain things. How do we walk through the world? And so these two practices, being present, being fully aware, giving ourselves an opportunity, are tools for self-awareness. They're tools for restoration. They're tools for reclaiming space so we can be free and to feel in a way that's non-judgmental and accepting. And so as we land um, into this current climate of where we are right now, and then just in general, that's my practice, is encouraging spaces where we can actually do self-exploration through the practices of yoga and through the practices of mindfulness. So circling back to this place called Bare Soul Yoga, it was created as a symbol of my own healing. It's the birthplace of the work came um, that came to me at a challenging time, but turned into such a beautiful thing. And so it's a practice of, or a place of, creating space for accessibility and approachability to getting to know ourselves and beginning a healing journey. And for me, healing can be defined as transformation. It can be defined as a release. It can be defined as a connection back to ourselves. But the practice and act of being with ourselves is the way that we connect with those that are around us. And so a space that Bare Soul lands to be a space that educates, right? And so encourages self-education and welcomes the whole community to do that in their own individual ways. And so I mentioned that, I came into this space of yoga by way of a yoga studio, right? But I also named that the practice of yoga, right, is a lifestyle. It doesn't have to be on a mat. It doesn't have to be on a cushion. It's actually being in relationship with each other and just getting to know my experience and then the other person's experience. So by elevating diversity and wellness and humanity um, in a space of wellness, I hope that we continue to come into this space of centering each other's experience. I get to land in also the world of trauma-informed practices. And many times I say that a trauma-informed practice is just what we actually are in our regular, like that's what our trauma-informed practice is our world at its essence. We're creating a space of being able to land in support, being able to land where our voice is heard, being able to land in empowered choice, being able to land in our ability to be seen, safe, and supported. So as we move towards today, this present day, and how we stand and how we live, over the past year, we've collectively gone through and arrived fully into moments of grief or uncertainty. We've been given an opportunity to acknowledge and honor what it looks like to experience something collectively together. We each had our own individual losses. We each had our own individual experiences with uncertainty and expansions. But similar to our own experiences of grief, we have to always be in a space of enhancing our capacity to feel and doing that with a space of being connected and compassionate. So humanity is founded in love. And I truly believe in this moment, coming back to the statement that we're all spiritual beings living a human experience, that we can invite ourselves into this opportunity of awakening our mind for a vision of getting back to the center of humanity, getting back to the center of love, first and foremost for ourselves, but then also for those around us. I encourage feeling. I encourage getting to know our identities and our roles. I encourage understanding our resources, whether they're people or spaces. And I encourage doing the work, the inner work, so we can continue to do the outer work. And so the more that each of us taps into our own inherent self and our own inherent humanity, I believe that we create a space to feel and be well. So wellness isn't just physical health. Wellness is the health of creating space that ripples into our communities where everyone gets the opportunity to feel seen, loved, heard, felt. And so that's where I feel that wellness lands. So the more that we create space to honor our own values, invite yourself to create space to honor those of others. So there's so much that we each have an opportunity to honor in our world and in ourselves. There's also such an opportunity for us to offer in this world. And we each have a personal responsibility to our collective. So I invite everyone to do our inner work. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it looks really good, and sometimes it doesn't. But I believe that the interconnectedness of all of us getting back into our core and back into our humanity will continue to ripple and make a change that we actually can't even probably imagine.
So good.
And with that.
Lots of claps and snaps for you this morning, Ashley. I echo Alicia Cute Dog this morning as she says, I feel my heart is cracking open in a good way. this is so powerful. So we have a few questions, and I'm going to start with Braylon. Is that, let's find you.
Breland's here.
Braylon, do you want to go ahead with your question?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for sharing. As always, Ashley, wanted to see if you could drill down a little bit more on the distinction between trendy wellness and more radical root-based wellness.
Yeah. Thanks, Braylon. I also named that like he's the person behind the words that were the ripple words too. So trendy wellness to me. So I will name that our society has completely turned wellness into a luxury. And it's turned it into a luxury by what we wear, who we see in media. And so I will name that as a Black woman, then I never saw people in wellness initially. Today, I think is very different, but I also don't think that I see as many Black people in the space of yoga and or meditation. I'm grateful to have teachers in that land. But the practice of wellness is a holistic practice. And it's actually a birthright. So, with us being in this space of humanity that's centered on love, we all have this access to being well. We all have this desire. We all have this birthright. We all have this right to be well. And the way that our systems have landed, we haven't actually, there's barriers to being well. And so trendy wellness to me is that yoga looks like we have a matcha tea and we have our Lululemon pants on, but I also am a Lululemon ambassador. Let me be real. And they're truly supportive in the work that I do, but it looks a certain way where wellness is actually a feeling. And it's meant to be a space where we are restored in our minds and our bodies. And it's actually something that it's our birthright to actually feel supported and well in our bodies.
Awesome. We have another question here from Sarah. Sarah, is that you?
Yeah, is that me, Sarah? Yeah, there may be more than one. I just had a question. I had a question about how has your practice of yoga changed during the pandemic? Just because, like, I feel like it is a spiritual connection when you're in a room with other people, even though you probably don't talk to any of them, right? It's just so how has that changed for you as we all went remote?
Yeah. So exactly a year ago, I completely, my practice shifted a lot. Similar to most of us, like the world halted, my world halted. And so that was an invitation for me to draw inward. And so, as someone who operates a company of people that are providing yoga and wellness services, my first question to us and to everyone was like, how can we support ourselves? Because we can't support ourselves unless we support other people. I mean, we can't support other people unless we support ourselves. So, first, there was a huge draw to just sit down and rest, especially because many of the students or the teachers that I land with, and many of the people that we serve, most of our teachers are people of color. And not only did we come into the health pandemic in a space of being the most vulnerable, but then we also came into the space of witnessing and feeling a lot of the racial injustice that was taking place. And so rather than being able to show up, it was more of like, how can we show up for ourselves? And so there was a pause, there was a halt. Moving forward from that, the practice changed to being more meditative and really tapping into how we were experiencing in our bodies. So somatic based practices rather than sometimes movement based practices, because sometimes movement can be a source of being more physically tired when our mind and our physical body was tired. I also want to name that when we experience a lot of, when we are moving into the yoga practice, there's different forms that are going to serve different people differently. So surprisingly, us switching to virtual was more inviting for some people because of the way that our community, and not specifically Richmond, but the community in general and the media portrays yoga. A lot of people don't show up to the yoga studio. And so because of either judgment or not being an inclusive space or feeling that they didn't feel welcome. And so we actually increased in numbers on a virtual space, which has continued to expand our community and really, to me, get back to the essence of the practice, which is how can we use this time to go inward individually and not need necessarily the connection, but use the connection as support. So virtually has been actually really elevating. We do miss human connection. And so right now we're located in downtown Richmond in a physical space. And so we do offer supportive, small group, safe space that's offering connection in that way. And that's just been really beautiful as well.
Awesome. Yeah. We have one more question, but Michelle, you want to ask yours, or do you want to take?
Last question. That's perfectly fine. We're right at 10, so we should
Okay.
let
Should
everybody.
I go ahead and let you ask your question? It was a good one. Where are you? You can go ahead.
Oh, hey, sorry. Yeah, I was wondering, you were talking so much about kind of the mental health benefits of this, and I realized, mental health care is completely inaccessible for most people. Even if you have insurance, like you can't get an appointment hardly. So do you think there's a correlation between the rise of popularity for yoga and mindfulness and the lack of accessibility for professional mental health care?
Yeah. So thank you for bringing that question up. It's probably the best question to even end our time together. But there's a lack of access and a huge health disparity to the practices of yoga and mindfulness. And also mental health resources. And honestly, I think they kind of go hand in hand. So I think that when we name mental health, we name and we think about more of the system of mental health. And then yoga and mindfulness, there are practices, but they're not necessarily in our system, especially yet right now. There's a lot of work that I'll be doing with our yoga therapist field, but they're not intertwined. They're seen as two separate things. When the practices of yoga and mindfulness are practices to help manage our mind and to help navigate the dis-ease and imbalance that takes place in our mind from certain life experiences. And so the lack of resources, especially, so if you know much about the work that I do, initially it became a space for being representation of Black people and our Black community, because there wasn't a space that was representing or educating or welcoming to the practice. And so that's where Bare Soul was created. And the hope there was that there was this education because I knew and felt the benefits of the practice. I will say that when we started offering in a way that was accessible and approachable, what I learned is that there was a lack of access for a huge community beyond just the Black community, right? So it became a diverse space for all different ages, for all different backgrounds, ethnicities, races, all of those things. And so for me, that just screams a huge problem that we don't have access to the tools that we need to be well. And so lastly, the transition, and if you continue to follow the work, and I invite you to follow the work, is that we're moving into the space of the Well Collective, which is an invitation for a diverse group of wellness practitioners to draw into this physical space that we're in right now to continue to offer ways for people to be mentally and emotionally and physically and financially well through offering well-being resources like yoga and mindfulness, but beyond.
Ashley, thank you so very much for today. We are out of time, and that was a beautiful answer. And I love how you kind of blended those things together. So thank you, Ashley and Kieran, for leading us into this space. I feel like the ripple of my smile is going to ripple forward into the world. And Ashley, it was definitely such a beautiful, heartfelt and heart-forward address that you gave us today. Please join us next month as we are going to be on Friday, April 16th for our next event. A hint of the topic is that you're not going to want to wait and put off your registration. So as we wrap up, I wanted to just invite Kieran to invite us to laugh our way out today. So Kieran, we'll turn it over to you. And as people drop off, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you. You're always amazing. Those words of wisdom. But today is National Let's Laugh Day. I am a laughter yoga leader. Laughter yoga is really a unique concept where anyone can laugh for no reason without relying on jokes, comedy, or humor. So I want to invite us all to take in this transformative power of laughter with a big laugh for 60 seconds. And that's as simple as that. So we do it like this, taking a deep breath. And
take yourself off mute.
Yes, take yourself off mute. And just find a smile. And when you're ready, laugh out loud.
Gallery of laughter.